Hey y'all, my name's Sydney Albright, and I'm going to be your host for this evening. And this is the first ever episode of Welcome to the Conversation. I wanted to get started with a little introduction of myself for those of you who may not know who I am. So, again, my name is Sydney Albright, and I'm this year's secretary for the Pennsylvania FFA. And I live here in Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. I'm filming this in my backyard, so if y'all are hearing noises, that's what they are. And for this first ever episode, I just want to do a little about who I am, what I do, and what this podcast is all about. So let's get this conversation started. Alright, so now let's get started. And for this first ever episode, I wanted to know what you guys wanted to know about me and my podcast. So, in case you guys didn't see, I had put on my story a little poll asking for questions that I could answer on my podcast. And I got a lot of questions, but I just picked the first six that showed up. So, I'm going to go ahead and answer your questions. So, the first one I was asked was, what should we start preparing for now if we want to run for state office? So the thing that I tell everyone to prepare first is their why. So this is why you want to run for state office. And this is something you should know before you even start your application. This is something I spent a lot of time trying to figure out on my own. And I ended up going to one of my role models and a mentor in my life, actually Janae McMichael. I met with her to work on my application, and she had asked me why I wanted to run. And I had been thinking about it for a while. We were told at Gold Toe Sox. No, it wasn't Gold Toe Sox. It was regular Sox. The Eastern Region Sox Conference, which is the state officer candidacy school. Crystal had told all of us to come up with our why of why we wanted to run, why we wanted to be a state office, why was this so important to us. And that really resonated with me because I couldn't answer any of the questions on the application without knowing that. Just because of the way that I wanted to answer these questions, I wanted them to be have the same meaning behind them, and I wanted the nominating committee to know why I wanted to run for state office. Now, I'm not going to share my why because I don't want other people copying it. You got to come up with it on your own here. But the first thing you should prepare for is coming up with that why, because that why is going to help you get through all those questions on the application. It is going to give you ideas for what to put in your intro speech, how you want to answer your questions in front of the nominating committee, all of that. So yeah, that would be something that you could start preparing for now, and just thinking about letting that kind of settle in and stew a little bit in your head. And then something else you can always work on is public speaking. So you can always just right now have your parents or friend, sibling, teacher even have them give you a speech topic, and you're gonna get 5 to 10 minutes to write this speech in anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to present it, because that's how long most of your speeches for the state officer process are gonna be. You only do 2 speeches, that's it. But yeah, just preparing for public speaking and making sure that you're ready for that and you know what you want to do. Stay away from words so, any kind of filler words. If you need to take a break to think, just pause. Don't pause for too long, but just take a pause and a breather, and they'll understand. It is better to take a pause than to say so, anything like that. All right, and that's just a couple of pointers I have for what you can prepare for now. Wow, I just did the thing. See? All right. And again, that's just a couple of things that you can prepare for now. You don't have to take my advice. You don't have to do any of that. But that's just what I did to prepare for this process, because it is a lot. And you're going to want to know, deep down, what is your reason? Because if you go in like, I want to give back to this organization that gave so much to me, yes, that is everyone's reason that they are here, but there is something deeper that is the reason you want to be a state officer, because that is a lot of work. It is a lot of commitment. It's not something that you can just do easily and jump into. And so knowing that deep down helps you prepare for this process and prepare for the role that you're going to have. Our second question is, what is the rewarding part of FFA and state office? So I think that my favorite part, and like the part that I think is the most rewarding, is talking to the members. And this might seem like everyone's answer, but I just love getting to know all of the members, seeing what their FFA programs are like, why they joined it, because FFA really is an amazing organization. And seeing the different reasons of why people like apply for chapter office, or why they applied for their jacket scholarship, or what their SAEs are, and what CDEs and LDEs they're doing, the competitions, all of that, and knowing what, like, if they're trying to get their Keystone or even their American degree. That to me is just so heartwarming, looking at why everyone wants to be in FFA and what they've done in it and what FFA's done in their lives. I've heard a lot of different inspiring stories from members about why they joined FFA and why they stuck to it. Because FFA is also not an easy thing to be in. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and just hearing from these members why they're in it, why they chose to do this, it warms my heart a little bit. um, and getting to meet the industry professionals and all of our sponsors is really cool, because these people helped pay for the jacket I have. They pay for stuff that we like, midwinter convention, summer convention, all the things. Like, we wouldn't be able to do this without them. And getting to hear why they wanted to support us and why they do what they do also is really cool to me. So I think those are my two most rewarding parts of state office. And our third question: what is your least favorite part of state office? I'd have to say the hardest part of state office would be the traveling and being away all the time. Um, I am a homebody. I love being at home, and seeing my friends and my family, people I love and care about. And it is really hard when I'm gone every single day of the week. My parents are working. My older sister moved to Florida for college, so I already don't see her. But my little sister, she's doing all these cool activities and fun stuff, and she's in cross country and FFA and marching band, and I end up missing a lot of it because I'm either gone when she has cool stuff going on. I was gone during her homecoming, and I wanted to see her before she went to that, and I didn't get to. Um, but also just like, I'll be gone and she'll have a like important cross country race, or she'll have an invitational that day for cross country, and I'll want to go, but I'm exhausted because I just got home from a long chapter visit. And I think the traveling and being all over the place all the time, you have your schedule, but it's not like a set, like, I know this day I'm working from 9 to 5, and this day I'm off, and this day I can go do this. Like, that's not how state office works. A lot of it is like, this week that I'm recording this, I had 4 days of chapter visits and 1 day off. And on the day off, I spent cleaning my room, tidying around my house. I ran some errands for my parents, ran my little sister around so she could do her fruit sale fundraiser for FFA. So it's not like you really have like a actual break. Um, and so that has to be the hardest part, is constantly being gone for me. And then number 4, the fourth question that was sent into my Instagram poll was, how many cows do you think you see a month? And I've got to say, I know who sent this question in. She is one of my really good friends from my youth group at church, and she's a funny one. But living in Lancaster County, I already see a lot of cows. And then, but when we're traveling, you don't see as many because we are normally in a hotel. And like once we get to the hotel, we get in there, we unpack, we go to bed, and that is it. And then we drive to our chapter visit. But I do see a couple cows every once in a while at schools. I was just at the Kennerdale High School, and they had goats, and they just got this barn. So it's like a brand new barn, and they're gonna be putting like cows and horses in it, and I thought that was really cool. Um, and the I'd heard that Northern Lebanon had a barn, but we didn't get to see it. But I heard they had a barn, so that was cool. And then sorry, there's a squirrel in my backyard, and he's like really close to me. No, and then there's been a couple other chapters that we've gotten to see their cows and see their animals. So I do see a couple cows a month at chapter visits, but living in Lancaster County, I pass cows all of the time. Oh, turns out I actually put 7 questions on here. I just realized that. So I'm actually going to be answering 7 questions. But question number 5 was, do you get free time as a state officer? And I kind of talked about this earlier with the least favorite part of state office. But with state office, when you first get elected, you have a couple days off to like get your life together, figure out what all you need for the next year. We got 10 days, I believe, which flew by. Yeah, most years I don't think you get that much time. We had about 10 days to get our lives together. And then after that, you go to base camp. You have like a week off. You get a checkpoint. So at the beginning, it's a little bit of a slower pace. But then once business industry visits start popping up, and you get chapter visits popping up, and you have CDE competitions that you go to help out, and you're getting requested for all these different events, your calendar fills up very quickly. So this next week, I have 5 days of I have an event every single day. We have the Farm Bureau annual meeting coming up after this, and that'll be 3 days overnight that we're gone. And then the day that we get back, me, Jacqueline, and Evan will be going to the Lancaster County Leadership Conference as soon as we are back. And then the next day we have a chapter visit. So you have free time sometimes. That's not like a really good answer, but every once in a while, like some of my other teammates have more days off than I have, but from my schedule, I normally have 4 to 5 days every week that I'm gone doing stuff. I don't get any days off really until the weekend. And even some weekends, we're called in to do different events and activities. So, but when you get back from a chapter visit, like you get back anywhere from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, depending on how far you drove. You'll have a couple hours in the evening to do more state officer work, answer some emails, get dinner, see people if you can or need to. But with the schedule I currently have, I don't have a lot of free time. I haven't really gotten to do any of the hobbies that I had done previous to this state office experience, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that's something when you're thinking about applying to state office is you have to really think about, if I don't have free time and if my entire life for 1 year is dedicated to FFA, am I going to be okay with that? Because I know it's been more of a struggle for some of the other teammates that I have, because it's very different than what you're used to. We've all struggled with it, everyone on my team, with you don't have a lot of free time, you don't get to see your family as much, you barely live at home. Like you come home, you get dinner, you go to sleep, you leave. And so and that's like every day for us. And so that does get difficult, and you don't have as much free time as you may have been used to. But you do have a couple hours every day to do what you need to do. You won't be able to hold a job unless you're really lucky. Chloe, I believe, is the only one on our team that has a job. She's very fortunate to be working with Triple M, and they're super flexible with scheduling and what all she does. Um, but most of us don't have jobs, and we like none of us are in college. We're not taking any classes, just because we wouldn't have the time to. So to answer the free time question, it kind of just depends on the week, on the day. Um, October, November, December are a lot busier than like what June and July were. Um, and then like January obviously is super busy because we have Midwinter Convention and Farm Show coming up, which I'm so excited for. Uh, and then after that we have chapter visits scheduled, and February we have stuff scheduled, and we have ACEs, and we have FFA, the National FFA weeks in February, I believe. Maybe it's March. Don't quote me on that. I have a really busy schedule. I can't keep track of it. Yeah, so do you have free time as a state officer? Yes and no. All right, question number 6, which I lied in the beginning. I'm sorry. Question number 6 is not the last one. But question number 6 is, what is the interview process for state office? So if you're thinking about running for state office, the first thing you're going to want to do, even if you're kind of on the edge still, is attend your regional SOX conference. Again, the SOX conference is the State Officer Candidacy School. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell your advisor you're thinking about running for state office. And you're going to ask if you can go to your regional SOX conference. They're normally held closer to the time that the application comes out. And I believe when I went last year for the Eastern Region SOX conference, the nominating committee application, I believe, was already out. So, yeah, you can go to the SOX conference too if you're thinking about being on nominating committee and want to apply for that, because that'll tell you like a little bit more of like what you'll be looking for, what you have to do. But it's mostly for students who want to run for state office, and it's what the process is going to look like, what you're going to have to do as a state officer, all of that. But then after you attend SOX conference and you decide that you are going to run for state office, you're going to apply. The application will come out. It's a couple pages. Each page only has like one question, I think, except for the first page is like the name. It's like, what's your name? What's your birthday? Do you have a reliable vehicle? You will need a reliable vehicle because, like I said earlier, you are traveling all the time. You are always gone, and you have to drive yourself. If you don't have a reliable vehicle, it can get very difficult for you, traveling everywhere and having to rely on teammates and parents the whole time. Um, so I definitely recommend having a reliable vehicle. And if you have a vehicle and it's not reliable, fix it. Or actually, don't have an or for that. But if your vehicle isn't reliable, it's okay. You don't have to have the most reliable vehicle as long as you can get from point A to point B safely in one piece. That's all they ask of you. Um, yeah, so that's like one of the questions on the application is a yes or no. Um, but you'll want a reliable vehicle if you don't already have one. And so you fill out like the first page, which is all like the basic information of you. It also asks for siblings because they like to. I don't know if the nominating committee really looks at that, but they do ask for like your siblings and their names and ages. Um, yeah, I don't know the purpose of that one, but it's on there. And then I forget what else it asks you, but yeah, you're gonna fill out the application. I forget how many pages it is, but it's a bunch of open-ended questions that you have to answer, and most of it is why you want to be a state officer. So again, that why you can start prepping now. And then after you do the application, it'll ask you if you're gonna attend Gold Toe SOX. Gold Toe SOX is only for people applying for state office once you submit your application. And so you'll go there, and at Gold Toe SOX, it's an overnight thing, but you don't have to stay overnight. It's very flexible. Um, and they go through the whole process with you in practice. So before you show up to Gold Toe Socks, you have to have your intro speech done. All of this will be explained better later, but you have to do I believe it was a 5-minute speech at max. Like, you can't go over 5 minutes of like introducing yourself, but you have to do it in a unique way. So you can't just be like, I'm Sydney Albright, and I went to Garden Spot FFA, and I did this in FFA. Like, that's not what the nominating committee wants to hear. That's all in your application. This is how you want the nominating committee to remember you. And again, I'm not going to tell you how I did mine. That is, I don't want anyone copying it. I want you guys to be able to think of it on your own, be unique, be authentic to who you are. That's one of our workshops this year. Some of you guys might have already done that workshop. Yeah, if you're thinking about running for state office, you're going to need an intro speech that is unique. And then after that, you'll present that in front of the nominating committee. And again, if you didn't know, there are 8 nominating committee members. So after the intro speech round, you go into your round robins. Your round robin round is going to be a one-on-one interview with each of the nominating committee members. So you do 8 5-minute interviews back to back. It's a lot. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I promise it really is not that bad. And nominating committee, they're always super sweet. They just want to pick the best team for the next year. And like, they're not going to pressure you. They're not going to give you an impossible riddle or answer. Yeah, so the round robin isn't that bad, I promise. It's just 8 5-minute interviews back to back. And then after that, you do the extemporaneous round, which is you go into the room, they give you your topic when you get into the room, and they give you 5 minutes to write a 2-minute speech on whatever topic it is. And then you present it in front of the nominating committee. And then after extemporaneous, you're at the last round, which is the group rounds. They'll split you into groups. I believe my group was 4 people. It was either 3 or 4 people. My first group round was 3 people. So everyone goes through the group round. And what happens with that is you go into the room, and they'll give you a prompt. And as a group, you have to do this presentation. And again, you'll get practice with all of this at Gold Toe Socks. I highly recommend going to Gold Toe Socks if you want to be a state officer. Which again, you can only do once you apply. Sorry, someone just started their lawnmower. You can only go to Gold Toe Socks once you've submitted your application. But I 10 out of 10 recommend going once you've applied. And then, so you have your group round, you go through that. And then after the group round, you have the possibility of a callback round. So during callbacks, they can call anyone or everyone back for any round. So you could go in and do another intro speech. You could go in, do another extemporaneous round. You could go in and do another group round. You could do more round robins. Or I believe they can ask for something different. But do not quote me on that. I was never on nominating committee. I could be wrong. That is actually a question you could ask Mr. Brammer, but not me. Yeah, so our callback rounds were group rounds. So they called back half of the they called back half of the candidates. And I was one that was called back. And so they called us back and just did another group round. And it was chill. It was cool. And don't worry, they do this in the span of 3 days. So it's not like you're doing all this stuff in one day, or like you have 5 hours to do it. You have the span of 3 days that they'll do this. And for the most part, you'll be sitting in the waiting room. So bring games, bring coloring books, something to do with your free time. Don't just sit on your phone. Talk to other candidates, make connections, because the candidates that you meet there, you will be friends for life. And 6 of them may end up on a team with you. So make friends. Alright, so that's kind of the interview process for state office. That was kind of a long answer, but it's kind of a long process. Alright, and our seventh and last question that I was asked was, what made you want to do a podcast? This one was pretty simple. So I had bought these little mini microphones, as you can see me holding in this entire video. I had gotten them for National Convention because I wanted to make a video. You can see it on my personal Instagram. It's not a great video, but I wanted to do more with it, and I just never had the time to because of what we were doing at National Convention with the delegate process. I didn't get to see a lot of Pennsylvania members, but I did use them. And then the one day, me and Emily were sitting in the room, and we were talking to each other. In case you didn't know, Emily is our state treasurer. And we were sitting, and we were holding them like this. We were just talking to each other while holding these microphones. They were turned off. Nothing was going on. And we were just sitting there talking with these microphones. And we were like, we should start a podcast. And I was like, that is such a great idea. Me and Emily, unfortunately, live in an hour, maybe a little more of an hour apart from each other, because I live in Lancaster County. She lives in Juniata County. And so a podcast together didn't really work. But I also needed an SAE project. So I started a podcast, and I'm going to have Emily on here multiple times. Don't worry, we'll have a lot of fun. I'm going to have the entire team on here at some point. I'm planning to have one by one have them come on, and then have an episode where all 7 of us are talking. That might be a little much, but I think it would be fun. Yeah, so that kind of just got like me thinking. And then we came back from one of our delegate sessions at National Convention, and I was like, I'm gonna start it. So I went on Spotify. I like logged in, did all of that, signed up for a podcast. I went on Instagram, created an Instagram for it. I started a YouTube channel for it. And then I created all the logos and designs on Canva, and I spent an entire night doing that. And I entered it into AET. So this is my SAE project. Because as a state officer, you have to have an SAE project still. And this is mine because it's something I could do in the car. Like, I could sit in the car and talk, and that could be my podcast episode for the day. I could be in a hotel room and film it. So it's something that I can like transport with me, and it's easy. That way, it does take up a lot of time to plan and figure all of this out. But I think it's a fun thing to do. And I also did get my inspiration from Abby, who goes to Pegway Valley. She has a podcast too. Go listen to it. It's called Stationed by the Owl. And hers is really cool. I 10 out of 10 recommend giving it a listen. And then Chloe Baumgartner, I think also, like our president, Chloe, I think she also wanted to start one. So I think it'd be a cool idea, like, once she gets hers going, and then, like, Abby has hers, like, we could do, like, a little podcast meetup. And these are just random ideas I thought of while I was putting this together, because I have a squirrel brain and can't think of one thing at one time. Yeah, so that's what kind of made me want to do a podcast. And then it gives me a chance to kind of inform members about what we do. And I'm not only talking about state office on this podcast. This first one was a little bit more geared towards state office activities, but I'm hoping to get some industry professionals, whether it's ag educators or farmers or landscapers, people like that. I want to get industry professionals on here talking, and maybe some members can make some connections and like figure out who people in their industry are, and get an idea of different problems and solutions we're seeing in agriculture, all of that sort of stuff. So it was just kind of a way for me to get agriculture out there and inform people about state office and what we do. So it's kind of like a mix of everything. And then after state office, I'm going to continue with the agriculture theme, but I also want to do a little bit more of like my personal life and like what's going on in Lancaster County, and just like what college is like after state office and that transition. So I think it'd just be a good thing that state officers can look back on and see like, this is what it looked like for my team. And then also just for members to understand what we do. and that we really hope that they appreciate the work that we do. Yeah, so that was why I want to do a podcast. And that was all 7 questions. Thank you so much for giving this first episode a listen, and I'm so glad you could be a part of this conversation. I hope you all learned something about state office or agriculture, and I'm hoping to have a special guest on the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks. So you'll see a post next week on Saturday revealing who our special guest is. And I hope you guys tune into that and that you learn something from them. Yeah. Signing off, this is Sydney Albright.